Andrew Johnson was one of the most sought-after young men in the city. Good-looking and charming, he was the only son of Mr. Benjamin Johnson, a wealthy businessman blessed with 5 children and great fortune. Mr. Johnson came from a family that had been successful for 3 generations. Despite his money and power, he raised his children with strong Christian values. He taught them to be good people, to show love and kindness, and to help everyone, especially those who had less. Andrew carried these lessons with him every day of his life. Because Andrew was so handsome, many people thought he was the type to play around with women's hearts. But that wasn't true at all. He was a serious Christian. His father wanted him to get married soon since he was the only son who would continue the family name. Andrew was tall, kind, and smart. His smooth brown skin, wavy hair, and bright smile made women all over the city admire him. But he wasn't interested in women who only cared about looks or money. What he wanted was real love, someone who would love him for who he was inside, not for his family's wealth. One afternoon, Mr. Johnson called his son into the living room. His voice was warm and loving as he said, "My son, I'm so proud of you. Remember, you promised me you would find a wife once you finished that big project overseas." Andrew laughed a little. "Dad, you know I haven't had good luck with women. They only care about my money and our family name. Whenever I try to see what's really in their hearts, I find nothing there. I once went on a date with a woman who told me she didn't believe in God and that marriage was just a trap." Mr. Johnson replied softly, "Don't give up on love, my son. The Bible says that he who finds a wife finds a good thing." Andrew nodded and agreed to start looking for a wife when he came back home. A few weeks later, Andrew returned to the country, very happy because his overseas project had been a huge success. His father, who believed in thanking God for every blessing, insisted that the whole family go to church together that Sunday to give thanks. That Sunday morning, the Johnson family walked into Victory Life Church, and everyone noticed them. The daughters were dressed beautifully, their skin glowing in the sunlight. Whispers spread quickly through the church. "I heard his son Andrew is single and looking for a wife," one lady whispered from the back row. Rebecca, the church's lead singer, noticed Andrew right away. She was beautiful and stylish, known for her amazing voice that often brought the congregation to tears. But behind her sweet smile was a heart full of pride and judgment. She looked down on anyone she thought was below her, often judging people by their clothes, jewelry, or phones. That day, seeing Andrew, Rebecca sang with all her strength, showing off as if she were royalty. When Andrew later stood up to share his testimony about the successful project, he also gave a very generous offering. Rebecca's eyes grew wide. She leaned toward her friend, another singer, and whispered, "Did you see that? So much money in that family. I must have him. He's single, rich, and from a powerful family. Who else in this church could match my beauty?" She smiled confidently. That evening, as the family sat down for dinner, Johnson turned to his son. "What did you think of those beautiful ladies staring at you in church today? Or are you saying you didn't notice?" Andrew laughed. "Come on, Dad. We were in church. How could I focus on ladies?" "Well, I noticed even if you didn't," Mr. Johnson teased, and they both laughed together. A few days later, Pastor Williams came to visit Johnson, as he often did, to pray with the family. During his visit, he reminded Mr. Johnson about the upcoming Thanksgiving service at the church and encouraged the whole family to attend. Mr. Johnson agreed without hesitation. On the morning of the Thanksgiving service, Andrew rode with his father to church. Along the way, his eyes caught sight of a woman crossing the road with a little boy, about 6 years old, holding her hand. As they got closer, Andrew saw an old man struggling with a heavy bag. Without thinking twice, the woman rushed over to help him carry it across the road. Her name was Faith. Faith was a single mother who worked as an usher in the church. She was hardworking, humble, and kind. She treated everyone with respect and never looked down on anyone. People admired her for her humble spirit. Her story was sad. Back in high school, she got pregnant by her high school boyfriend. But when she told him about the baby, he left her. Later, she heard he had married another woman in a different country. Since then, Faith had raised her son alone, working hard to take care of him and her sick father. She worked at a furniture store, doing everything she could to provide for her family. Despite all her struggles, Faith's faith in God never got weak. She remained active in church service, trusting that God's timing was perfect and that one day everything would work out for her. Watching her help that old man that morning, Andrew smiled quietly in the car. "It's nice to see that people still care about others," he said softly. Mr. Johnson nodded knowingly. "I think I've seen her in our church before," he said. "She looks familiar." When they arrived at the church, Rebecca immediately spotted Andrew. She moved around boldly, trying to get his attention. But Andrew didn't pay her any mind. His focus was on Pastor Williams and the message being preached. His heart was absorbed by the sermon. After the service, as Andrew walked toward his car, a small boy ran up to him with tears in his eyes. "Sir, my ball fell in the drain. Can you please help me get it?" Andrew looked down at him, saw the sadness on the little boy's face, and nodded. Without hesitation, he followed the boy to the drain. He took off his jacket, rolled up his sleeves, and bent down to get the ball out. When he handed it back, the boy's face lit up with joy. "Thank you, sir. Now I can keep practicing. I want to be like Cristiano Ronaldo when I grow up." Just as they were talking, Faith came running up, slightly out of breath. "Where have you been?" "I've been looking everywhere for you," she said to her son. Andrew suddenly recognized her face. It was the same woman who had helped the old man earlier. Faith quickly thanked him for helping her son. "It's my pleasure," Andrew replied warmly. "He reminds me of myself when I was little." They started talking. Faith spoke about her faith and what serving in church meant to her. Andrew listened carefully, deeply moved by her sincerity and her selfless heart. By the time their conversation ended, Andrew realized there was something special about her. Faith's humility, kindness, and devotion left a mark on his heart. As they said goodbye, he felt a sense of hope and excitement, thinking that maybe he had finally met someone who truly understood love and faith. When Andrew got home that day, he went straight to his father, eager to share everything that had happened at church. He told him about the little boy whose ball had fallen into the drain. He also mentioned Rebecca, the stylish singer with a beautiful voice. But even as he spoke, Andrew reminded himself that outer beauty couldn't fool him anymore. A few days later, Andrew went to a nearby supermarket to buy some things. As he walked down one of the aisles, he suddenly heard someone call his name. "Mr. Andrew." Surprised, he turned and saw Rebecca, the lead singer from church, smiling warmly as she walked toward him. "It's me, Rebecca, the singer from church. Nice to meet you properly," she said. Andrew smiled back. She joked with him, saying it was good to see such a handsome man in the house of God. They both laughed at her playful words. Rebecca soon noticed he looked a bit confused. When she asked if he was shopping alone, Andrew nodded and explained that his sister had sent him to pick up some items, but he didn't even know what most of them looked like. Rebecca offered to help, and although Andrew hesitated, not wanting to trouble her, she insisted. They shopped together, laughing and sharing stories about church and their lives. When they were done, Andrew thanked her sincerely. Just before he left, Rebecca handed him a small invitation card. "My birthday is this Friday," she said softly. "I know you're very busy, but it would mean everything to me if you came." Andrew smiled and told her he would try to make it. Her eyes sparkled as she thanked him. He took the card and replied warmly, "Just call me Andrew," before walking to his car. On the day of the party, Andrew dressed in his usual nice suit and arrived at the venue. Rebecca rushed out to meet him, overjoyed that he had come. She hugged him happily, and Andrew reminded her with a smile that he tried to keep his word. He mentioned he couldn't stay long because of an online meeting later that evening. Still, they sat together talking, laughing, and sharing stories about the church, their love for helping others, and their dreams of living a life devoted to God. By 7 o'clock, Andrew knew it was time to leave. Rebecca looked sad when he said goodbye, wishing he could stay longer. He smiled warmly and wished her a happy birthday again before leaving. When Andrew got home, his father was in the living room watching the 8 o'clock news. "Good evening, Dad," Andrew greeted cheerfully. Mr. Johnson looked at him and joked, "Good evening, my boy. You're smiling like you just won $1 million. They both laughed. Andrew then told him everything. How he met Rebecca at the supermarket, her kind invitation, and her sweet, polite behavior. Mr. Johnson listened carefully before asking with a smile, So, my son, are we finally looking at a wife? Andrew hesitated. I guess so, Dad. But sometimes what you see on the outside can be very different from what's on the inside. I want to be sure of a woman's heart. I have a plan. Next Sunday, I'll dress up like a beggar and sit outside the church gate to see who truly has love in their heart. Cousin David, who looks just like me, will go to church in my place so no one will suspect anything. Mr. Johnson chuckled. My son, are you trying to play games in the house of God? Andrew nodded firmly. Even the Bible says we should be as wise as snakes. I want a woman with a forgiving heart and real love. Proudly, Mr. Johnson smiled. You're right, my son. Do what you need to do. You have my full support. The following Sunday, Mr. Johnson went to church with his family as usual, but this time it was Andrew's cousin, David, who went with them. Because they looked so much alike, everyone thought David was Andrew. Meanwhile, Andrew had dressed himself in old, torn clothes, looking exactly like a beggar. He stood quietly in a hidden corner of the church, listening to the sermon and watching carefully so no one would recognize him. When the service ended, he slipped out unnoticed, walked to the church gate, and sat on the dusty ground like a poor beggar, waiting to see who would truly show kindness. Rebecca soon spotted David, thinking he was Andrew. Her heart beat fast. Blushing deeply, she left her usual spot in the church and went straight to sit beside him, acting as if they were already a couple. She leaned in close, showing off with bold movements, completely forgetting she was still in a place of worship. Laughing loudly and smiling big, she tried to draw everyone's attention. As church members started leaving, Andrew lifted his voice in a soft, pleading tone. Please help me. I haven't eaten for days. Anything will help, please. His words floated gently across the street. When he saw Rebecca coming with her friends, he thought to himself, surely she will help. But he was deeply disappointed. Rebecca walked right past him without even looking. Instead, she made a disgusted sound and said, You lazy fool. Instead of looking for a job, you're sitting here waiting for someone to feed you. One of her friends, seeing Andrew's sad face, whispered quickly, Don't mind him. And they all walked away, leaving him sitting in the dust. A few moments later, Faith appeared, holding the hand of her little boy, Tommy. The 6-year-old's eyes grew wide when he saw Andrew on the ground. Mommy, look at this man. He hasn't eaten. Can I give him one of my biscuits? The boy asked eagerly. Faith smiled warmly and nodded. Yes, you can, my boy. Tommy handed over his biscuit and Andrew smiled gratefully. Faith then reached into her handbag and pulled out some money. I don't have much, she said softly, but take this. Andrew's heart filled with warmth as he accepted the money, deeply touched by her kindness. Oh, thank you so much, my dear, he said gently. You're welcome, sir, Faith replied with a smile as she and Tommy continued down the street, waving back at him. When the street emptied and silence returned, Andrew quickly stood up and hurried to where his car was parked, his heart racing. That evening, back at home, he shared everything with his father. Dad, you won't believe how she acted. The one I thought was an angel in church, Andrew said, shaking his head. Rebecca, the beautiful singer with the amazing voice. She treated someone in need with such cruelty. I'm very disappointed. He paused, then continued. But Faith, the usher with her little boy Tommy, she showed real care. She didn't know who I was, yet she gave me from the little she had. Her heart is pure, Dad. That's the kind of woman I want in my life. Mr. Johnson nodded thoughtfully. Yes, she truly is a nice person. I once forgot my wallet in church, and she quickly brought it back to me. I even offered her some money, but she refused with a gentle smile. Andrew's face brightened. Exactly, Dad. She's the only one who showed me pity without knowing who I really am. Rebecca's beauty and voice can't hide the emptiness in her heart. I'll try again next Sunday, Father. I won't judge based on just one day. I need to be sure. Try. Mr. Johnson smiled and placed a reassuring hand on his son's shoulder. Whatever decision you make, I'll stand by you, my son. Take your time. Watch with your heart. If Faith keeps showing such kindness, then perhaps you found your answer. Andrew nodded seriously, already planning his next test for the coming Sunday. He was determined to find a wife with true values, someone who understood forgiveness and love, not just appearances. The next Sunday, Andrew once again dressed in his beggar clothes and sat quietly outside the church gate. As church members began leaving the service, he called out softly, asking for help. "Please, someone help me. I haven't eaten for days. Anything would help." He watched closely, waiting to see who would show real concern. One by one, young ladies who normally smiled and waved at him in church walked past. Their faces were blank, their eyes looking away, as if he were invisible. Andrew's heart sank a little, but he stayed patient. This was the real test. Suddenly, Faith appeared, holding a black plastic bag in her hand. "Oh, I'm glad you're here," she said happily. Bending down slightly, she handed him a loaf of bread wrapped in the bag. "I bought this for you on my way to church this morning, so." Then she reached into her purse and gave him more money. "Use this to buy a drink," she said. Andrews smiled warmly. "Thank you so much, my daughter. You're so kind." Faith laughed softly. "It's my payday week, so let's celebrate together." Then Andrew asked about her son. Faith told him that Tommy was still inside the church, helping the other ushers arrange chairs. As they talked, Rebecca walked past with her friends. Andrew called out, "My daughter, anything for a poor beggar." But Rebecca shouted at him angrily, "How dare you call me your daughter? Don't you ever in your life say that again." She stormed off with her friends, leaving Andrew to bow his head in shame. Faith leaned toward him and whispered gently, "Don't mind her, okay? I have to go back to the church to help the others. Take care of yourself." Andrew nodded. "God bless you, my daughter." Later that evening, Andrew came home and told his father everything. He showed Mr. Johnson the bread and the money Faith had given him, and he described how rude Rebecca had been. "I'm very disappointed, Dad," he said. "I expected kindness from her, but she was so cruel. Even though she smiles and seems sweet in church, outside she's the complete opposite." Mr. Johnson nodded seriously. "You see, my son, what people show on the outside can be very different from what's inside. But have you found the answer you were looking for?" Andrew shook his head. "Not yet, Dad. I think I should try one more time. You know what they say, third time's the charm." The following Sunday, Andrew dressed again in the same beggar clothes and sat quietly outside the church gate. As members came out after service, he called out softly for help, watching their reactions carefully. Once again, Faith appeared, this time holding Tommy's hand. "Hey, my daughter. How are you?" Andrew asked warmly. "I'm fine," she replied with a smile. "I need to go home quickly today to give my father his afternoon medicine. He isn't feeling well." Andrew looked at her gently. "My daughter, can I ask you something? Where is Tommy's father? I only see the two of you every Sunday." Faith's smile faded a little. "It's a painful story, but I'm all Tommy has. I got pregnant by my high school boyfriend. We were in love and he promised to marry me, but he left me after I got pregnant. I lost my mother during that time and had to drop out of school to take care of my sick father. Life was very difficult, but God has been faithful." Andrew nodded seriously. "I'm so sorry to hear that, my daughter. I didn't mean to bring up painful memories." Faith smiled softly. "It's okay. That pain has turned into joy because of Tommy. Here's a blessing." Andrew looked at Tommy, who smiled shyly. "He's a good child with a kind heart," he said. Faith then handed Andrew some money. "Take this. Use it to buy water. The sun is very hot today." Andrew was touched. "My daughter, your father is sick, and yet you still think of me. Thank you." Faith waved as she and Tommy walked away. Not long after, Rebecca and her friends passed by, laughing and talking loudly. "Did you see how Andrew looked at me today?" she said to her friends. "I will definitely get him. I can already see myself in that big mansion as his wife, with the maids calling me Madam Rebecca." Andrew, still dressed as a beggar, called out softly, "My daughter, anything for me today." Rebecca stopped and shouted angrily, "How dare you say that again? I will never give you even 1 penny. If you're tired of life, just die. Stop disturbing people." She stormed past, her friends laughing loudly behind her. Andrew bowed his head, feeling ashamed and heartbroken. The coldness in Rebecca's heart was clear for everyone to see. Yet, he stayed calm. He had finally seen her true character. When Andrew got home that evening, he sat quietly on his bed, his mind full of thoughts about Faith and everything she had shared with him. She had so little, yet she was always giving to others. Even after all the pain she had been through, she never let it make her heart hard. To Andrew, she was a woman of true virtue. Her strength, humility, and real love for people shone brighter than wealth or status. As he smiled to himself, he realized that he had finally found someone remarkable. The next morning, Andrew joined his family for breakfast, his mood lighter than usual. With bright energy, he announced, "I found my wife." His sisters looked at each other curiously. Rachel teased him, saying, "Finally, you're giving us a sister-in-law." The table filled with laughter. Mr. Johnson, however, looked at his son with interest and asked, "When are you bringing her home?" "Soon," Andrew replied thoughtfully. "But she has no idea who I really am. We've only met once, when I helped her son get his ball from the drain. I don't know if she would accept me if she knew my true identity." "Why not, brother? Any woman would be lucky to have you," one of his sisters said. "No, not Faith," Andrew answered firmly. "She isn't materialistic. She's independent and smart. She doesn't care about status or wealth. She values love and kindness above everything else." Mr. Johnson smiled warmly. "Don't worry, my son. She will accept you. You have the blood of the Johnson family. Do you know where she lives?" "No, Dad. But I asked one of the ushers, and he told me where she works." "Good. Then you should visit her," Mr. Johnson advised. A few days later, Andrew went to the furniture store where Faith worked. As soon as he walked in, Faith stepped forward and greeted him warmly. "Welcome to Luxury Furniture, sir," she said, bowing slightly, though her eyes looked cautious and curious. She didn't recognize him at first. Andrew smiled at her, but his silence made her nervous. "Sir, is something wrong?" she asked quickly. "Not at all," he replied gently. "I just wanted to thank you for the bread you gave me. I really enjoyed it." "The bread?" Faith asked, confused. "You bought it for me one Sunday," Andrew explained softly. "I'm the old beggar you helped at the church gate." Faith's eyes widened in shock. "You're the man from the gate," she stammered. "Yes, it's me, Andrew," he said with a kind smile. Then he explained everything. How he had dressed up as a beggar to find a real wife, afraid of ending up with someone who only wanted his money. "But of all the ladies I met at church," he said sincerely, "you were different. You have real love and forgiveness in your heart." As the shop closed, Andrew offered to drive her home. Faith refused politely, but he insisted. When they arrived, Tommy was outside practicing his football skills. "Mommy, Mommy, welcome," Tommy shouted, running to her. Then, seeing Andrew, his face lit up. "I remember you, mister. You helped me get my ball from the drain that day." "Oh, little Ronaldo, you remember me?" Andrew laughed. "How are you doing?" "I'm fine, sir. I've been practicing hard," Tommy replied proudly. Andrew turned to Faith. "I should go now. May I have your phone number?" Shyly, Faith gave it to him, her hands shaking nervously as she held his phone. "Thank you," Andrew said warmly. "I'll call you." The next day was Saturday morning. Andrew called her and invited her to dinner. Before evening, his driver brought over dresses, jewelry, handbags, and shoes in different colors for her. That night, they had dinner together, sharing stories, laughter, and dreams. As the evening grew deeper, Andrew looked at her seriously. "Faith," he said, holding a sparkling diamond ring, "will you marry me?" Faith gasped, covering her mouth with her hands. I don't know what to say," she whispered. "I know this is fast and may feel overwhelming," Andrew said gently. "But trust me, you won't regret marrying me or joining my family. And Tommy, he will be my son too. I will raise him with love as if he were my own." Months later, the whole town buzzed with news. The beggar who had sat outside the church gate was actually Mr. Johnson's only son, Andrew Johnson. And the man everyone thought was Andrew all along was actually his look-alike cousin, David. Andrew only smiled at the whispers and surprise. In Faith, he had found more than a wife. He had found a pure and steady heart, one capable of giving a love that no amount of wealth could ever buy. When Rebecca heard the news, she couldn't hold back her tears. She collapsed onto her bed, overwhelmed with regret, as memories of her harsh words and cruel actions toward the beggar flooded her mind. She remembered calling him a lazy fool, how she had mocked faith, and how she had believed herself too important to help anyone in need. Now the truth was clear. The very man she had looked down on was Andrew Johnson, the same man she had admired from afar in church. The realization hit her like lightning. Her pride and shallow thinking had cost her the chance to be with a man of true character. With her head bowed in sorrow, she wished desperately that she could undo her actions. But she knew some mistakes could never be taken back. While Rebecca cried in regret, Andrew and Faith's love grew stronger. Their wedding had been a beautiful celebration of love, attended by family, friends, and church members who all came to admire Faith's kind and generous heart. Under Andrew's care, Faith's father, who had been sick for years, was flown abroad for the best medical treatment. With time, he slowly got better. Tommy was enrolled in one of the best schools in the city, receiving a great education. He continued to follow his passion for football, attending one of the top football academies during school holidays. Months later, their happiness deepened when the cries of a newborn baby filled the mansion. Faith had given birth to a beautiful baby girl with curly hair and bright brown eyes, who instantly became the center of their world. Tommy was overjoyed to have a little sister and proudly took it upon himself to help take care of her, saying that he would always be her protector. Through it all, Andrew and Faith never forgot the lesson that had brought them together. True love grows from kindness, forgiveness, and a heart devoted to God. They understood that no matter what challenges life might bring, as long as they carried love, faith, and forgiveness in their hearts, they could overcome anything. And so, in a home built on trust, compassion, and God's guidance, their family lived happily ever after. Proof that the most beautiful relationships are those built on real love, with God at the center. ***, dear readers, what lessons did you learn from this story? We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story, please share it with your friends and family. ***.